Welcome to Why Should I Invest? Developed by the International Collegiate Angels Network, or ICAN. At ICAN, we believe that campus-born ventures are today's most underappreciated asset class. Each podcast will spotlight a campus-born founder and the venture they're building. I'm going to ask the tough questions that investors would want to ask. Today I'm talking to Peman Montazemi, who obviously is the CEO and founder of a company called Finally Quiet. And Peman, I'm going to ask you to please give us a little background on yourself and how you came up with the idea for Finally Quiet.
Thank you so much for having me, and good morning to everyone. So my name is Peman Montazemi. As you mentioned, founder and CEO of Finally Quiet. I've been in medical devices for almost 25 years. In September, it's going to be exactly 25 years. Class 1, Class 2, and Class 3 implantables. It's something that I truly enjoy, system architecting. And the latest roles that I've been held, from director, executive director, and chief technology officer. And the way, we came up with the idea, my wife is a dentist. And on August 20th of this year is going to be exactly 12 years that, during a car ride, a carpool ride, she enters the car after a long day in the clinic. And she says, she turns off the button of the radio. She's like, I cannot listen to one more sound. And I'm like, did you have a bad day? Did you have a difficult patient? Did you have a difficult day? Whatnot? And she said, no, none of that. It's just that, the sound coming from my, instrumentation, including the handpiece or the drill, the ultrasonic scaler, the suction system and whatnot, really, really exacerbate my hearing. And I think I have the beginning of tinnitus, which is, ear ringing. And she also mentioned that, every time I start any of my instruments, my patients also become stiff like a piece of rock. And so it's very difficult for me to manage their tongue in their mouth, and I have to hold it to the side, and the assistant is struggling, and I get cramps in my hands. How am I going to practice, 40 years, which is the typical average, number of years that a dentist, practices this way? You are a biomedical engineer. Why don't you do something about this? And then so looking back, etc. In modern dentistry, it's at least a 100-year-old problem, given the, compressors and whatnot. In older dentistry, which is about 300 years old, that problem was born really from the first drills and mechanical drills that were born and drilling in the teeth of patients. And she called it, Finally Quiet, because she said it came from the heart.
Well, that's a great founder story. I love it. That's a perfect story. And boy, I guess I can't deny that, in fact, the whine of the instruments in the dentist's office can be extremely anxiety invoking.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's and that all that anxiety gets dumped actually on dentists is something that we don't see. We go there if we have good teeth, twice a year, maybe 3 times, depending on insurance coverage and whatnot. But for them, Tom, is at 8 o'clock, is at 8:15, is at 8:30, is 8:45. And every time, most of the things, as a minimum thing involves some drilling, involves some cleaning, involves some, whether it's ultrasonic scaler and whatnot, which then, dentists are twice more prone to having, hearing loss. And if you have hearing loss, there's 90% chance that you have tinnitus.
Yeah, and So you've developed a device that cancels that I don't know what you would call that, a hissing noise or some type of a loud, high-pitched whining noise of some sort. And tell us a little bit about how the product works.
Well, the product works. There's a little bit of background there, so and it may come as a hard punch, during this podcast. But I think honesty and truth are of utmost importance. So I'm a bombing survivor, and so during the Iran-Iraq war back in 1985, January 1985, the first bombing started in Tehran. And we were fleeing the country, but I was with my mom, just left there selling everything while my dad, was in Belgium, and my brother had escaped the country in Switzerland. And then so during that bombing, what happened is that, you see this first huge light coming through very thick curtains that my parents had in their bedroom. And this huge light comes in, and you see this thing is like a sustained flash of a camera, and it's continuous. It doesn't just flash and then go. or flashes and go and stays continuously, and then you're wondering what is it? Is like a thunderstorm or what? And then only 4 or 5 seconds later, the vibration from 6 rockets that had hit our neighborhood, came. It was about a kilometer and a half, maybe a mile away from our house. And then I was projected against the wall, and I became unconscious for I don't know, for about 30 seconds to a minute. And I woke up, and that's exactly that specific technology that we're using in Finally Quiet, because that's the idea. That's where the genesis of that idea is, that high frequencies travel at 4,000 meters per second in the jaw of the patient during drilling, and 343 meters in air. So to beat that speed, what we have, we bring the information from the handpiece or the drill or the ultrasonic scaler at speed of light into the patient headphones, and we beat it because it travels at 300,000 meters per second. Now our processors have tremendous amount of time to respond to something that is traveling at 4,000 meters per second, and that's where the genesis of the idea came from that event. And later on, when my sense of emotional intelligence, grew up in my 20s and 30s, I realized, why am I so excited every morning to be and to wake up and go at the day, is because I was giving a second chance at life, and I'm also realized that that's where the technology later on came from.
Well, it's a compelling story, and you are a great storyteller. I think maybe we should have you do a pitch, some type of pitching little course for all of the companies in ICAN, because I think you tell stories very wonderfully, and you have great stories, and it's fascinating where some of these technologies come from. So basically, so the patient wears a headphone, and does the dentist and the assistants in the dental clinic also wear headphones?
Sure, absolutely. That's the second piece of the technology. There are 3 pieces of hardware. The second piece is that we have a fully integrated piece of hardware for dentists, assistants, hygienists, and front managers or front desk staff. So everybody in the facility is wearing one, and that piece has basically an optional ear tip that is taken with an impression. So typically these impressions usually are with molds, etc. But we have moved to using light, and then so auto scan. It's a device that you put in the ear, and within a few seconds it takes a scan. We send it to the 3D printer. We print with the biocompatible materials that are FDA approved. Basically a custom ear tip, for people. And we have generic ones too. If you have a temp who's just replacing someone on a regular basis and on a day, or just for one day or a couple of days, we have generic tips, and those as a minimum they abate by about 20 decibel. And then of course if you have the custom ear tips with our proprietary materials, those reduce the sound even further down to minus 33 dB of protection, which then brings you way in the safe zone where you're no longer exposed to this harsh noise, basically. And the last piece of the system is called the base unit, and the base unit is what provides power to dental care providers via speech recognition, because you have to realize their eyes are on the prize, with the patient in the mouth, etc. So you don't have your eyes anymore. Right. Your hands are lost because you're, with dirty gloves, you're in the sterile field. So you cannot, unless you remove your gloves, and then you have to re-sterilize again. We have voice recognition. So we have voice recognition with speech, AI engines that recognize basically the intent of the user. And within 0.1 second, we can do stuff like, okay, play music for the patient, stop music for the patient, then the patient joins the conversation. You can ask them questions. They can also raise their hand, which is the international rule, to do what? To be brought into the conversation. But you can do fancier stuff too. You can take notes. Well, my wife, every time, she finishes at 5 o'clock, she has to stay, in the clinic until 6:30 to write her notes, type her notes, doesn't matter, paper-based or electronic. Well, this basically can understand the entire conversation and provides those notes. You just approve them and even submit to the insurance. You can do stuff like put me on a private line with the manager while you're in the sterile field in the mouth of the patient. You can say, I would like to speak only to the 3 hygienists. I would like to do chair to chair, or if there's a fire or something like that, you can do a broadcast of a code red from the mouth of the patient. While you're stuck in there, you can really drive your operations and hopefully hit optimal clinical operations.
Sure. So it sounds like your product has multiple applications. In addition to the noise canceling, it also can do transcription.
Yeah, we thought that, since we have the hardware in place, we have the real estate there. So
Yeah.
what do we do with that? And how do we
Yeah.
connect the patient and the doctors and
Uh-huh.
everybody else? So it is truly a noise canceling and AI-driven wireless communication system, specifically designed for dental clinics, but also with applications in orthopedics, because 50% of orthopedic surgeons are partially deaf or hearing impaired. And I was with Smith & Nephew for 4 years. I've been in multiple,
Sure.
surgical, implants,
Uh-huh.
total knee replacement surgeries, whether it's cadaver based or not. And it's a really extremely harsh, loud environment with cutting saws, and so
Uh-huh.
there should be no surprise where Finally Quiet has multiple applications, not just in healthcare but in construction, manufacturing. We're talking to the Department of Defense in November. So there's certainly
Wow.
other verticals for us to explore.
Wow, it's amazing. And you are focusing on the dental clinics as your
Yes.
first vertical? Yeah.
Absolutely, yes. That's our
Yeah.
sub vertical of healthcare,
Yeah.
but healthcare itself is, $20 trillion,
Yeah.
globally.
Yeah.
And then so it's a product there that we see that we can really, that many people, could benefit from.
Wonderful. And tell us about the status of the developmental pathway, the pipeline of
Sure,
development of the
absolutely.
product.
We had our alpha prototype, or one generation before our minimum viable product, that was deployed in two clinics, and then during two sessions, so clinical study 1 and 2. And we generated an average of about 80%, satisfaction rate in effectiveness in improving the patient's, experience, based on 39, patient surveys.
Okay.
And we had as low as 64 and 72% on some of the questions, and those were related directly to the fact that we were using off-the-shelf, headphones and headsets. And then so those are suboptimal for application, but that's why you do those clinical studies, so you understand the gap
Sure.
in the product
Yeah.
before the next iteration. So now we know exactly what the final product is that these folks want. And now we have 33 letters of intent that have been signed by clinics. So we pretty much have 50% already of our first year projection in the pipeline, thanks to that feedback and those user needs that have been fine-tuned based on those clinical studies.
Well, congratulations. I'm looking
Thank
at
you.
some of your information here that you provided in advance, and you really have this dialed in. I mean, you even have your customer acquisition cost per clinic dialed in at $23.50 per clinic. I mean,
Yes.
not $23.49, not $23.30, but $23.50. You got it dialed in.
Yeah, we spoke with many of them, and we think that we have a pricing model that is really appealing, because that's the average cost and that they would be paying. But we have a monthly subscription, basically, that they pay for the software and the cloud piece and the speech recognition, and all the hardware comes free. Like day one, we don't have any obstacles, to enter the market, and they don't have any obstacle to say no. This is something that protects your hearing. It improves the patient, experience, so you don't have
Right.
word of mouth that's gonna, skyrocket for your clinic. Imagine in these, metropolitan areas where there's a lot of, concentration of dentists, just like Orange County, where we are. It would be a huge differentiator, competitive differentiator for adopting clinics. And we also plan to have a, zip code search in the future, where patients, there are 212 million patients in the United States that have dental fear, 75 million of which have dental phobia. They can't even get themselves to those good dentists unless
Right.
there's something very seriously wrong with them. So if I am one of those patients and I see an ad or something, from Finally Quiet, I can just navigate to the finally-quiet.com, and then I enter my zip code, and we'll do proactive pushing of those patients to adopting clinics. So we do proactive
I
marketing
see.
for them as well.
Oh, brilliant. You guys have this end-to-end figured out. Now, there's a number in your information that you provided to me that I find to be quite astounding. 1.7 billion addressable procedures per year.
Yes.
There's that many dental procedures going on per year.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. At an average
Wow.
of about $100, per one. So
Right.
the total income generated by just the dental, and that's mostly, generalists, is $173 billion. So it's
Right.
an incredible, market. It's an untapped market, and that's where we see the opportunity for Finally Quiet to
It
shine.
is
And
untapped.
of course, my wife, being a user of the system. I mean, we have two prototypes. Each of them cost us, $175,000. I travel with one, for investor demos and whatnot. On Wednesday we're talking with the Glidewell Dental and whatnot. But then she has the other one, and good luck, getting it from her. She would kill me
Yeah.
I try to even, get close to it or take it away from a kid.
Oh, it's a wonderful story. I just have a couple more questions. Number one is, do you have a manufacturing pipeline set up, supply
So
chain
we
set
do
up?
have, that's an excellent question, Tom. So of course with the tariffs, et cetera, imposed by the Trump administration, and some of it are deflating, some of it are inflating, is still, but we see a trend that is like kind of coming down, which kind of was expected, by experts when I attended, the JP Morgan conference earlier this year. But the fact is that we have actually 6 manufacturers that are actually on standby because, within 12 months from now, we'll be manufacturing and shipping our first units to those people who have signed those first 100 letters of intent, and we give them, 20% discount and whatnot. And those were the theme at the CDA that we just, finished, which is California Dental Association conference that we just wrapped up in Anaheim. And then so what will happen is that we will wait for that to stabilize. Thank God we have plenty of time, Tom, to make that decision. But we have manufacturers in China, Taiwan, Vietnam. We have Eastern Europe, including Romania. We have Mexico and United States in Minnesota. So we're just waiting, and our head of operations is being onboarded as we speak.
Got it.
We're just waiting, and then so thank God we have time to make that decision.
Right. And I'm guessing this doesn't require any FDA approval. It's non-invasive.
The beginning, absolutely. So the beginning will be, general wellness, product. But the fact is that there are actually codes in the audiology space, for hearing protection that we can benefit from, and also teledentistry. So there may be some codes already existing. If not, our plan is to actually go for a 510K with the FDA. I've sat down, 53 times with the FDA over the course of almost 25 years in Q subs and various interactions. So I think they will appreciate, positioning us for a class 2, and then that will allow us with clinical studies showing the efficiency and perhaps even get our own CPT and HCPCS, codes.
Okay, interesting. And then finally,
it will be coming for free, for clinics who are adopting it.
Got it. And finally, I'd like to hear a little bit more about your team. We know a little bit about your background. It's a wonderful background. Who else is on your team?
Sure. So I myself, I've had 4 exits, and maybe that's a detail I've never mentioned, that between companies who have been acquired between $10 million and $2 billion. So John Hollister is currently our acting chief commercial officer. He comes with a background of 35 years in medical, biopharma, biotech. He has been also twice, CEO of previous companies, including Imaging 3. Sarah Butker is our chief financial officer. She's fractional right now, and then will, continue, increasing, her basically allocation. And then we have on the board of directors, we have Dr. Pur Hamidi. She's a previous chief clinical officer of Envista, the largest global dental company, which really speaks, to the cause here and the opportunity. But going back to the C-suite, my wife is our acting, chief dental officer. She's also, of course, full-time working as a clinician. And then we have, 7 engineers that it took me, 5 years, to gather. And they're working, from audio acoustics to, DSP in the audio side, or digital signal processing for the audio piece, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi. We have electronicians or electricians, for all the board layouts and wireless communications. We have an AI and data scientist, on the PhD side for speech recognition and tuning of our artificial intelligence engines. And finally, we have mechanical engineers who are doing all the acoustics and the design of what the headsets and are going to look like.
Well, you got all the pieces in place. If you don't mind, tell us a little bit about your connection to UC Irvine. You mentioned some kind of
Absolutely.
Accelerator, incubator or something.
Yes, absolutely. It goes way back. So, I did my executive MBA. I'm a class of 2022 at UCI, the number 1, executive MBA program in Southern California.
Yeah, wonderful.
And very privileged.
You went back to school then, I guess, huh? You went back to school, yeah.
Back to school, yes. After many years, it was really an eye-opening experience. And of course, I finally Quiet with me graduated from that program because every presentation was on this. And there's tremendous amount of brilliant minds and brilliant brains, including all my professors. And the dean of the school, Dean Williamson, who contributed to that vision. And then we were also, honored earlier last month to be part of the Realize Accelerator that is, hosted at ULP. So University Lab Partners, that is also on campus there in Newport Beach. Beautiful campus, by the way. largest UC campus actually.
Yeah, I've been there. It's a beautiful
California.
campus. Yeah.
And also we won the Innovation of the Year award that was granted to us by the Greater Irvine Chamber. So those are I would say, the biggest tractions that
Yeah.
that we've had from
Terrific.
from that perspective.
And you're seeking $2 million in financing.
That is correct, and we're in due diligence as we speak right now with the 5 VCs and 2 large angel groups
Yeah, I
as
can
we speak.
understand that.
So we're hoping to close very soon.
Yes. Well, hopefully there'll be some left for us to get involved at some point.
But we would love to.
It sounds like a wonderful story. It's been great chatting with you today. And if people want to get in touch with Finally Quiet, could you give us a little bit of contact information?
Absolutely. P. Montazemi at finally-quiet.com. That's one way. The other thing, you can book a call with me directly from our website. You go to finally-quiet.com and click on book a call. You'll be booking a call directly with me. And these are half-hour slots. And I would love to be in touch.
Great. Thanks for joining us on the program today.
Thank you so much for having me, Tom. Absolute pleasure.
For more information about how you can get involved in the ICAN mission, please contact me directly via email at tomdenning@icanhub.net.